Everything we consume in this country is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. From food to medicine, Americans rely on the FDA to judge the safety of these products. But unfortunately, public safety is not usually the agency's #1 concern. And you don't have to take my word for it. Earlier, I spoke to a former FDA special agent, Gary Collins, who's experienced corruption at the agency firsthand. I first asked him why U.S. food regulations are so much more lax than other industrialized countries.
During my investigative career, we always said follow the money. Unfortunately, greed rules all, and in the sense of regulations, they're looser here because, the food industry wants to get certain additives that are illegal in Europe and in Canada, and it's a cheaper way to make food. I mean, that's the bottom line. It increases their bottom line, and in the process makes us unhealthier. So it always seems to boil down to money.
Gary, in the past, you've said that if Americans really knew what was going on in the areas of healthcare and nutrition in this country, they would be appalled. What else are we not seeing?
We've become kind of brainwashed to think that the healthcare system in the food industry is there primarily to help us, and I don't know if that's the case anymore. I am not putting a blanket to say they're all bad, because I don't believe they are. But I think there's a disconnect between the health community and the food community and the consumer.
For our audience that doesn't understand the corruption, can you give us a specific example, I guess, in vague terms, of the type of corruption that you witnessed during your time at the FDA?
Well, I would see investigations going in a certain direction depending on who the investigation was on. And that was kind of what opened up my eyes up. I noticed that there would be certain targets that we would go after. And there could be no other reason besides it was to someone grinding an axe somewhere up above us in the field area, as far as in the field offices. It seemed that the organics industry was taking a lot of brunt. And holistic practitioners, naturopaths, it seemed to be kind of a focus, and I could never understand why. Don't get me wrong, some of these people were doing some pretty harmful things. But it just seemed that at that time we were going after this certain group more than others. Was it a coincidence? I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, speaking of organic food, I mean, you've been really outspoken on the subject of genetically modified foods. In 2012, Gary, you point out that 1 million signatures backed a petition in favor of labeling GMOs. You've said that this is more signatures than any other food petition previously submitted to the FDA. What interests are keeping the agency from acting on this?
Again, it was like at the beginning of the conversation, it is money. GMOs have become very profitable, and it's a machine. GMOs for the farmer, instead of using their own seed to grow these crops, they've got to buy the GMO seeds over and over again for every planting, every season. So obviously the companies that produce the GMO seeds are highly profitable because they have a consumer for life. I mean, the farmer it's illegal for them to even use their own seeds or any seeds recouped during the harvest. I mean, to me, that's just pure insanity. I mean, I can't even understand that.
Gary, when we're talking about money, of course, money is an issue in European governments as well, but they haven't had the same lax requirement on GMOs. I mean, what is it about this country specifically, do you think, that is just completely different on the GMO issue?
Well, I think it's our food system and our diet. The standard American diet is well known for being the most unhealthiest diet in the world for the most part. And I think when I was working with the State Department and traveling around the world, what I saw was there was a better connection to the consumer and the food producer. There was, small markets. What we call farmers markets is actually the grocery store for people in European countries for the most part. For us, we go to a huge store that has tens of thousands of items, and we don't even know what they are anymore, and there's a complete disconnect. So for us, it's easier, I think, in this country to get away with more loose regulations on products and ingredients than it is in Europe, because the consumer has to see the food producer one-on-one. When you no longer have to see the food producer one, they're thousands of miles away on some huge, manufacturing facility, basically. I mean, there's just no checks and balances anymore.
You know, it's not just GMOs. You were mentioning earlier these additives proven to be harmful in food across America that's also banned or outlawed in other countries. How are these chemicals tested, approved in the first place? And I know trans fat was just banned. Is it just massive social pressure that gets the FDA to actually make these changes?
It is, but even I always look at even those changes. You know, when everyone came to me, I got a million emails, people asking me about the change in the idea of trans fats. And I went, well, I would have to see the regulation and see the loopholes, because I can guarantee there's going to be loopholes in it. To say that we're going to eliminate all trans fats in the American processed food industry right now is insanity. I can't see that happening. There's going to be some way of getting it in there somehow, because it's so much cheaper to put trans fats in our processed foods than to actually put real healthy fats into our foods. So again, it comes to money. So I'd be curious, and we won't know. It's going to have to play out. It'll take, you know, probably 5 years before we'll even see if this actually comes to fruition, or people forget about it, which usually happens, and we go about our normal lives and we don't even understand how to read the food label to see if there is trans fats in it.
Right. I mean, the food label looks like a foreign language. It's just all these crazy sounding words that I have no idea. You know, I mean, of course, people have no idea what they're eating. But honestly, I mean, what about the other additives? How do we get to like aspartame? And I mean, there's so many other ones that are just flooded, proven to be harmful. Gary, what do we do about it? And why are they just flooded into the marketplace with minimal testing?
Well, what happens is you have now chemical companies basically who are involved in the food industry. And these, like aspartame was found by accident to be a sweetener. I mean, that's not what the original intention of the chemical was, but that's what it ended up. And in the food industry, the only way you can change it is for the consumer to change it. And what I teach in my writings and my philosophy is that you will affect change by not buying those products and simply going and supporting your local farmer, supporting your local economy, building a relationship with those individuals, because you have to change it from the grassroots level, from your community up. If you try and attack the federal government or the big agencies, you're just beating your head against a brick wall.
100% agree with you there. Gary Collins, former FDA Special Agent, really appreciate you coming on.